You know, whether it's a birthday card from your grandma, a prescription you really need, or that package you've been tracking like a hawk, the United States Postal Service is this constant, quiet presence in all of our lives. It's an institution that's actually older than the country itself. But right now, this vital service is at a serious crossroads, facing a crisis that could fundamentally change how we all connect with each other. So, let's get into it.
What makes the Postal Service so unique isn't just its age, it's its mission. A mission that's literally rooted in the Constitution. You see, it's all built on this promise called the Universal Service Obligation, which is just a fancy way of saying that every single person, no matter where you live, from a skyscraper in Manhattan to a tiny cabin in Alaska, deserves affordable and reliable mail service.
And the scale of that promise, it is just staggering. The USPS delivers to over 170 million addresses 6 days a week. This isn't just some delivery network, it's the physical thread that ties the entire nation together. People have called it a national treasure, and for good reason.
But that treasure is in some very, very deep trouble. The story of the Postal Service today is really a story of a beloved institution that's fighting for its life against a modern financial crisis.
And this really gets to the heart of it. This is the core belief that so many people hold, from folks like former Postal Executive Jim Cochran to millions of regular Americans. It's a public service, first and foremost. But that ideal? It's slamming right into a very harsh reality.
Okay, and here is that reality in black and white. Well, maybe more like red. Now, the big number that jumps out is that massive net loss, right? Almost $9 billion projected for 2025. But here's the really interesting part. Look closer at the line called controllable loss. That's basically a measure of how well their core business is running. And it's actually getting worse, jumping by almost 50%. So what that tells you is that even with higher prices, the actual day-to-day job of moving the mail is getting less efficient.
So to fix all this, leadership rolled out a huge, ambitious, and, pretty controversial plan that was pitched as the Postal Service's big comeback. It was called the Delivering for America Plan, or DFA for short. This was a bold, 10-year, $40 billion overhaul. The goal was pretty simple on paper: modernize the whole aging network, and most importantly, stop the financial bleeding. They were even aiming to break even by 2023. But the results? Yeah, they haven't quite lived up to the hype. Instead of a big comeback, a lot of people are just getting slower mail and seeing the post office sink into even deeper financial trouble.
So, on the one hand, the plan promised financial stability and delivery you could count on. But the reality, according to stakeholders and even the agency's own numbers, has been billions more in losses and service getting worse all across the country, hitting rural areas especially hard.
So what does this slower service actually look like in the real world? Well, this timeline from the Postal Regulatory Commission is a perfect example. Before 2021, if you sent a letter from Tulsa to New York City, it was supposed to take 3 days. After the first changes, that went up to 4. Today, it's 5 days. Just think about that for a second. You're paying more for service that is officially, by design, slow.
And what happens when service slows down and prices go up? You guessed it. Customers start looking for other options. We're seeing big drops in volume for both first-class mail and, this is the really worrying part, shipping and packages. And that's the segment the USPS is supposed to be betting its entire future on.
And hey, it's not just angry customers who are concerned. The Postal Service's own regulator, basically its official watchdog, delivered this absolutely damning verdict on a key part of the plan. They concluded it would have a negative impact on service and, get this, would fail to create a more efficient network.
Ouch. All right, this brings us right up to the present moment, and to a brand new, incredibly high-stakes gamble that's designed to bring in a massive wave of new cash.
So to understand this gamble, you have to understand the last mile. It's that final, super complicated and most expensive part of any delivery. You know, getting a package from some local warehouse to your actual front door. And the USPS has the single best last mile network in the entire country because it's the only one that goes to every door, period.
So the new strategy is to monetize this absolute crown jewel by auctioning off access to it. Think of it this way. Other companies, from giant retailers to other shipping companies, could bid for the right to have the USPS deliver their packages on that final, crucial leg of the journey.
Now, the Postal Service already does this for a few huge customers, and its biggest partner, by a long shot, is Amazon. Amazon pays the USPS around $6 billion a year to handle some of its last-mile deliveries.
So here's the gamble. What happens when your big strategy to get more customers, just like Amazon, actually makes your biggest customer
Amazon, think about leaving. There are reports that Amazon might not renew its contract in 2026, which would create a potential $6 billion hole right in the budget.
And the stakes here, they could not be higher. Based on the rate they're losing money right now, some projections show the Postal Service could literally run out of cash by early 2027. This last-mile gamble isn't just a strategic choice, it's kind of a desperate move on a very, very tight timeline.
So, where does this leave us? Well, the Postal Service is at a huge fork in the road with two very different ideas about how to save it. Critics of the current plan are basically shouting, hit the brakes. They're pushing for a totally different path. They're saying, let's immediately pause the big DFA plan. Stop spending billions on these new facilities, and instead, let's lean into what private companies do best, like handling logistics. Other ideas include a hiring freeze for desk jobs, and a common-sense financial change to let its massive pension fund be invested for better returns, just like pretty much every other retirement fund.
You know, this whole thing really boils down to one fundamental question. The Postal Service is part of who we are. It connects all of us. So what should it be? Should we demand that it operates like a for-profit business? Or should we protect it as an essential public service and accept that its incredible universal reach might always come with a price tag? The answer to that question is going to define the future of mail for generations to come.